Can you explain to the Americans, amid this impeachment inquiry, why you interacted with so many of your son and brother's foreign business associates?
I'm not going to comment on that. I did not, and it's just a bunch of lies.
You didn't interact with many of their business associates?
I did not. There's lies.
On this vote, the yeas are 221 and the nays are 212. The resolution is adopted. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
All right, so we got to talk about some big news out of Washington, D.C., okay, the swamp, okay, as Republicans seem to be playing some 3 or 4D chess with the Democrats, finally, when it comes to this impeachment inquiry of Joe Biden, which has now officially been opened after Hunter Biden decided to defy a congressional demand to testify on Capitol Hill in regards to his business dealings overseas and whether or not it involved his father. Now, if you guys have been living under a rock, you should understand that the Republicans have been flirting with impeaching Joe Biden. And a lot of people in the base were getting frustrated with Republicans because they did not seem to be moving fast enough in regards to impeaching Joe Biden for his alleged role selling influence overseas through his son, Hunter Biden, mainly in Ukraine and China. Now, the Republicans have been showing circumstantial evidence that leads to the idea that Joe Biden was involved. However, according to the mainstream liberal media, the Republicans have no evidence, right? It started with that, and now what they're saying more specifically is that Republicans don't have any direct evidence, okay? Because Republicans have shown text messages, emails, bank statements. They have whistleblower testimony. They have a ton of circumstantial evidence that suggests that it is definitely worth looking further into the Biden crime family and that there's definitely some influence peddling going on here. However, they need just a little bit more power and authority in order to do so. And it seems like Hunter Biden may have walked into a trap laid by the GOP after he refused to testify behind closed doors for the GOP's investigation into his father. Hunter Biden said that he wanted to do an open door testimony to prove his innocence, and GOP said, no, we want to do it closed doors. And at first, I didn't understand why the GOP just wouldn't do it open doors so that the public could actually hear what Hunter Biden had to say and listen to the testimony for themselves. But actually, I think I'm starting to understand more about the Republican strategy here. And I'm going to explain to you guys my analysis of this. But first, I want to go ahead and play Hunter Biden and what he had to say on Capitol Hill as he was refusing to testify behind closed doors for Republicans. Take a look.
Let me state as clearly as I can. My father was not financially involved in my business, not as a practicing lawyer, not as a board member of Burisma, not in my partnership with a Chinese private businessman, not in my investments at home nor abroad, and certainly not as an artist. During my battle with addiction, my parents were there for me. They literally saved my life. They helped me in ways that I will never be able to repay. And of course, they would never expect me to. And in the depths of my addiction, I was extremely irresponsible with my finances. But to suggest that is grounds for an impeachment inquiry is beyond the absurd. It's shameless. There is no evidence to support the allegations that my father was financially involved in my business because it did not happen. James Comer, Jim Jordan, Jason Smith, and their colleagues have distorted the facts by cherry-picking lines from a bank statement, manipulating texts I sent, editing the testimony of my friends and former business partners, and misstating personal information that was stolen from me. There is no fairness or decency in what these Republicans are doing.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that, okay? That is Hunter Biden, who basically declined to testify behind closed doors as Republicans asked And he said he'll only do an open door testimony, which led the Republicans to basically say that Hunter Biden is in contempt of Congress, right? Because he's refusing to comply with the actual terms of the subpoena, which is that he testify behind closed doors.
Hang on one moment. We've been waiting to figure out what James Comer and Jim Jordan are going to do. James Comer is the chairman of the committee from Kentucky. Jim Jordan from Ohio. Let's see what they have to say. Initial reaction now.
Issued a lawful subpoena to the president's son that we expect him to come in and be deposed. This is a normal process in an investigation. This has been a serious, credible, transparent investigation from day one. We've published 4 bank memorandums. We've had countless press conferences. This is an investigation about public corruption at the highest levels. We have accumulated mountains of evidence that's concerning to an overwhelming majority of Americans. We have specific questions in there, and I think we're going to allow you in there to see the piles and piles of documents, of bank statements, of emails, of text messages that we've worked very hard on in this committee over the last 8 or 9 months. We expect to depose the president's son, and then we will be more than happy to have a public hearing with him. With that, I'll turn it over to Chairman Jordan.
Well, I would just echo what the chairman said. You know, we're disappointed that he didn't show up. I mean, he was just across the way at the Capitol. You think he could have come here and set the question. You do it in an open format now, you're going to get filibusters, you're going to get speeches, you're going to get all kinds of things. What we want is the facts, and the way you get the facts in every single investigation I've been involved in is you bring people in for an interview behind closed doors where you can get those facts. And then, as the chairman said, we'd love for him to come public. Finally, I would say this: Mr. Biden's counsel and the White House have both argued that the reason he couldn't come for a deposition was because there wasn't a formal vote for an impeachment inquiry. Well, that's going to happen in a few hours.
Yeah, so hold that thought, guys, because I think that's where the 3D chess or 4D chess comes in for Republicans and what they just did to Hunter Biden. But first, of course, you got to talk about the meltdown from Democrats, because Democrats are obviously upset by this, and they think that this is just a witch hunt to get revenge on Joe Biden because of the BS impeachments of Trump, which, by the way, I want to remind you guys, circumstantial evidence was more than enough to justify the Democrats and their impeachment inquiries into President Trump. But circumstantial evidence from the Republicans, apparently that's not good enough to justify an impeachment inquiry into Joe Biden. Again, just another double standard and hypocrisy here from Democrats.
And right now we know that they are continually trying to tear us down from within. When we swore our oath to protect against enemies, foreign and domestic. And let me tell you something. Those of us that serve on oversight, especially those of us that are specifically Democrats, I feel like we are constantly fighting domestic enemies, and no one should feel that way. The American people should be outraged right now. Outraged.
I think it's important to note here that the committee issued a subpoena and Hunter Biden is here in an attempt to comply with that subpoena. It is the committee that has rejected the terms that they themselves set out for compliance with that subpoena that is now preventing a public and due process from happening. So when folks try to raise things that may have happened with other investigations or January 6th, whatever that may be, witnesses that were called and subpoenaed during that time did not even make an attempt to comply with the subpoena. The chairman laid out himself the terms of what compliance looks like. He said compliance with this subpoena means that you can show up either in private or in public, whichever you choose. And when his own option was chosen, he decided to reject it at the last minute. Secondly, it's also important to note that not only is the committee not allowing Hunter Biden to testify publicly, but they have not called a single witness, a single first-hand witness to any of their allegations. They haven't allowed anybody to testify publicly because they do not have a single witness to any of their alleged allegations. They don't. We have asked virtually every single person that has come to testify for this committee, have you seen, witnessed, participated in a room, anything with first-hand testimony of any of what is being alleged? And every single witness that they have called before us has said no. I haven't seen anything, didn't heard anything, wasn't party to anything. So this is just storytelling.
Yeah, so you've seen that, you heard that, okay? Apparently AOC thinks that Hunter Biden should get to dictate the terms in which he complies with a congressional subpoena. Amazing stuff, right? Hunter Biden should be able to tell them what he is and is not going to do. So now we have to go to the White House and get the response from the Biden administration, from the Affirmative Action Press Secretary on Hunter refusing to comply with the congressional subpoena.
Is the president okay with his son defying a congressional subpoena?
I'm just not going to get into specifics on that. I would have to refer you to the president's, not the president, but Hunter's personal representatives. He's a private citizen. I'm just not going to get into it.
Can you tell us when the last time the two of them spoke?
I mean, I'm also not going to get into private conversations that the president has with his family. We've been pretty consistent. That's nothing new. We're just not going to get into it from here.
Republicans say that they have to take this vote, formalizing an impeachment inquiry, because the White House is stonewalling them. What's your response to that?
The White House is stonewalling the House Republicans who have been really pushing this impeachment without any evidence, like without doing this political stunt. I mean, that's what they've been doing over and over again. And we have said it. Other Republicans have said it. There's no evidence here. There's none. Look, I just said at the top, they're going to go home tomorrow, right? They're going to go home this week. And what have they done? We need critical aid to Ukraine. Have they gotten that done? We need to secure the border. Have they gotten that done? We need to make sure we avert a government shutdown in January. Have they even had conversations to get that done? And instead, they focus on baseless political stunts.
But with that being said, Hunter Biden refusing to show up for the closed-door meeting basically gave Republicans little to no choice but to move forward with the impeachment inquiry of Joe Biden, because they can't get the closed-door testimony of Hunter Biden. So they basically now are forced to move forward with this process to gain more legal power to go after the Biden crime family. Take a look.
At this point, the House's only position is to pass the impeachment inquiry, because you're dealing with a lawless administration that is accustomed to the obstruction of justice by the Department of Justice to protect the Biden family. His statement was a joke. And for him to show up on Capitol Hill, give a presser for not even a presser, he read a statement, took no questions from the press, got back in the car and left, demonstrates how arrogant he is about the seriousness of what's going on. And let me be very clear, Larry. Any American out there who defies a congressional subpoena, they will be held in contempt of Congress, and they will be prosecuted by the Department of Justice. Hunter Biden is not above the law. Last point I will say, Donald Trump Jr. was deposed by House Democrats 5 times, and there was no impeachment inquiry vote, and Donald Trump Jr. sat for those depositions. And what the House Democrats found out at the time is that all they were doing was just fishing, and there was nothing there. We have the goods on Hunter Biden. He needs to come in and answer questions.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that. As Byron Donalds pointed out, the Democrats are hypocrites once again, okay? Because when it came to Donald Trump Jr. in the Russia collusion investigation, the Mueller investigation, Democrats had subpoenaed Trump Jr. multiple times to show up and to testify, even though there was not a formal impeachment inquiry at that point. They still called him in to testify because of allegations against his father. Now, Republicans turn around and give the Democrats a taste of their own medicine, and now all of a sudden they want to boo-hoo, whine, and cry about Hunter Biden having to testify when they had no problem putting Trump Jr. through the same exact questioning when they were doing the witch hunt against Trump that ultimately turned out to be a big nothing burger. But they were allowed to fish and fish and fish and fish and fish, okay, trying to find evidence or direct evidence that Trump colluded with Russia. Never found it, right? But see, when Republicans do that, all of a sudden, oh, it's a problem, right? It's a big issue that Republicans continue to fish for more evidence against Joe Biden. And that is the importance of the impeachment inquiry being formally opened because now it has been passed because you have moderate Republicans finally decide to get on board with the impeachment inquiry. So now Congress is going to have more power to investigate. Okay, they're going to have more power to get access to the documents they need to show that direct link between Joe and Hunter Biden. Now, so far, they have showed strong circumstantial evidence that Joe Biden is involved with Hunter Biden's businesses and that he may have received kickbacks and payment for influence peddling. However, they don't have the direct smoking gun, undeniable proof that Joe Biden took money from Hunter in exchange for, some policy decision or exerting influence over some policy decision on behalf of a foreign entity, okay? They don't have that direct evidence yet, and it's going to be hard for them to actually piece that together, which is hard to believe because this guy, Hunter Biden, is facing federal charges for tax evasion, right? Evading paying millions of dollars to the IRS, and he spent all that money on hookers and drugs and sex clubs, which, again, it blows my mind that he was that reckless when it comes to evading taxes. And he also was reckless enough to leave his laptop at a Delaware repair shop with all of this mountain of evidence. That is the reason why he's in all these situations in the first place. He's reckless enough to do that, but he was smart enough to cover up his tracks with a network of LLCs and pass-through entities in order to cover up the influence peddling that he did with his father, right? It's truly unbelievable. This guy might be the dumbest smart guy on earth. I mean, it's really unbelievable, right? It really is. But hopefully this impeachment inquiry, the fact that Republicans now have more power to actually get access to Biden's financial statements and documents, his bank records, hopefully they will at some point produce that smoking gun evidence, which I would hope that they're not wasting time doing this investigation if they don't believe that there is smoking gun evidence, right? So I think eventually they're going to produce something. And Hunter Biden may have walked himself into a trap by refusing to testify behind closed doors. And the reason why I say that is because before all this, moderate Republicans were on the fence about actually moving forward with the impeachment inquiry because they were afraid that this was going to affect the outcome of their elections in their districts. They would lose their jobs behind this. However, there seems to have been a change of heart, and I think that Hunter Biden refusing to comply with the subpoena, which basically makes it look like he's trying to avoid questioning, he's trying to avoid actually complying with the investigation, I think that gave them all the ammunition they needed to say, you know what, this guy's not complying. We're trying to do our investigation without opening up the impeachment inquiry. However, because the main guy is not complying, now we have to open up the impeachment inquiry if we want to move further with the investigation, okay? I'm just saying, it seems to me that Hunter Biden may have walked himself into a trap by refusing to comply with the closed-door subpoena, which could be the reason why the GOP issued it in the first place, because they figured that Hunter Biden would deny it, and therefore it would give them all the ammunition that they needed to get the moderate Republicans on board to move forward with the impeachment inquiry, right? They can go back home and tell their districts that, hey, I voted for the impeachment inquiry because Hunter Biden wasn't complying, right? We're just doing the investigation. Hunter Biden's not complying. This is why I voted for the impeachment inquiry. Now, again, it remains to be seen whether or not the actual impeachment inquiry will produce the smoking gun evidence that Republicans need to say, hey, we can move forward with impeaching Joe Biden. But regardless, it doesn't matter how much direct evidence the Republicans produce. The mainstream liberal media is going to deny that the Republicans have evidence, and Democrats, of course, are not going to go along with removing Joe Biden from office in the Senate trial. But like I told you guys from the beginning, it's not about actually removing Joe Biden from office. What it really is about is the court of public opinion, okay? Can you make Joe Biden appear to be corrupt? It's already bad enough that the country is in a disaster under Joe Biden. If you can also throw the corruption on top of it in a way to kind of wash out the corruption of Trump in the eyes of the public, then the Republicans were successful, right, with their impeachment process against Joe Biden. That's what it's really about. It's really about the court of public opinion. Polls indicate that a majority of the American people do believe that Joe Biden is corrupt and that he was involved in his son's business dealings. I think Republicans, what they're trying to do now is to get as much of that evidence out to the public, let them decide whether or not Joe Biden is guilty. And ultimately, the Republicans would accomplish their goal, right? Which, again, is to smear Joe Biden as corrupt, okay? And it remains to be seen whether or not they're going to be successful with that. I mean, I think that they ultimately will be successful. I think they're trying to time it for the summer, though. They're trying to get the impeachment trial to happen during the summer in the midst of the presidential election, in the midst of Trump going to his trials and stuff like that, again, as a way to kind of distract the public from Trump. Because, again, if there's a Senate trial of the president of the United States, yeah, MSNBC is going to try their best not to cover it, but they're going to have to cover it, right? I mean, it's actually going to be a dereliction of their duty as the mainstream liberal media not to cover a Senate trial in which the president of the United States could potentially be removed, right? I mean, I'm just saying they're going to have to cover it, at least some of it. And at that point, the Republicans would win if they just can make sure that the evidence that they produce in the eyes of the public is undeniable, okay? Regardless of what the mainstream liberal media says or regardless of what Democrats say, they have to do that, and they have to actually get it to the Senate trial and time the Senate trial in a way to distract from what's going on with Trump. I think that's what the Republicans are attempting to do. I think that Hunter Biden walked into a trap here by refusing to testify behind closed doors. And that is currently where we're at. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.